women are emotional beings.
Sure.
Women experience words.
Okay, for our listeners, that was Dawn. She's a woman who said that. It wasn't the guys. We didn't say that. We just said amen, but we didn't say it.
But we
You
know
sound
that.
scared. You sound scared, Los. I'm gonna say it with you. Dawn said that, folks.
My man.
Let's go, let's go, let's grow, let's grow, let's get it.
What's going on, everybody? We are Black Dad Unfiltered. I'm Carlos V. Spencer.
And it's your boy, Coach Rod. Again, trying to change the narrative on Black fathers through authentic, honest, and real conversations. Los, what we got on deck, baby?
Man, listen, we unfiltered. We don't even own a filter. Today, we are talking about trauma. About trauma and how to deal with those traumas. And I was having a conversation with somebody even today, and I believe it'll come up within our show one today about how some of us don't even know that there's trauma and our life has been built around it, right? I can say that for myself. I don't know about you, Rob, but there's been different pieces of my life that I've come to find out in my adult age that trauma has kind of shaped me. How about you?
Oh, come on. I think it's almost impossible to be a Black man in America and not have experienced trauma at some point during your upbringing, your teenage years, your adulthood. And I'm really glad we're doing this because it's part of my healing and becoming a man, a responsible man, a man that I can be proud of. I realized I had to start looking back at my life, and I just started identifying things that I didn't realize impacted me and shape my discussion. So I'm glad we having this conversation. I'm even more excited the fact that it's not just me and you having this conversation.
Right. You giving it away, man. He giving away the sauce.
My fault, man. We can delay it. We can keep doing this, or we can get right to the meat and bones.
You're good. No, but you said it perfect, man, because it's great to have a conversation like we do. And I think we've had some wonderful conversations, but I believe it's fair to say, especially with this topic in particular, that we're bringing in somebody who's a professional, right? Somebody who's licensed to deal with this, somebody who has dealt with this. And we're going to get into this person who's dealt with this topic and others, specifically with men and men of color. Isn't that something? So as we bring in our guest, by the way of Jamaica, her name is Dawn Petgrave. She is a licensed clinical psychologist and also a forensic psychologist. I'll have her explain that because I ain't gonna try to say what that is and what that means, but we'll go ahead and bring her to the stage, and we're gonna have some conversation. We're gonna have some questions. We're gonna have some great dialogue.
Let's do this.
Dawn.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
I'm amazing.
Miss
How y'all doing?
We're doing great. I think, Los, we forgot to tell people, and I'm really excited about this. Dawn is officially the first guest of Black Dad Unfiltered. And we had to have a Dawn. I mean, I advocated for this, right? I didn't have to advocate hard, but we're both Caribbean. So I felt like that brings another perspective to this whole conversation and expands it beyond just the United States. No, Los, this is inclusive. You're part of the diaspora. You know what I mean? We just expanded it. So now we have the U.S., Jamaica, and Haiti, consequentially, probably the three biggest countries involved.
I'm going to be Jamaican for the day. I told you I went to Jamaica. Matter of fact, we went together.
Yes, we did. Let's keep that a secret, Los. Let's keep that a secret. Man.
Wait,
this is about Dawn.
Talk about our Jamaican trip in college and the fun we had. I was just going to say when I was walking to Jamaica how they thought I was Jamaican until I started talking. I was walking down the street and the guy was
Jamaican.
Like, he said, "What's up?" I said, "How you doing?" He said, "Oh man, we thought you was from the island before you spoke, man."
Yeah, remember my favorite part is when we were on the beach and Dawn, Jamaican men, I love them because when they romance women, it's a bunch of poetry. So we're on the beach, guy stops a woman, "Baby love, you're like the moon and the stars," and I started dying. I started laughing my butt off.
Did I hear Dawn suck her teeth? Did I hear Dawn? I think so. I think it came out. Right? I think it came out.
But Dawn, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, we did our intro, but we want to hear from you a little bit about yourself. And I know Los and I already know that this is a passion for you when it comes to really helping men deal with trauma. So tell us a little bit.
Yes. So I'm a mom of three children, two adults and one teenager. And they keep me busy.
My
They're big people, but
condolences.
they keep me busy. But but I'm just, it is my greatest achievement,
Sure.
being a mom, and I'm just so honored to have them in my life. I'm also a licensed minister, in addition to psychology. I sit on the board of visitors for maximum security prison in Jamaica. Currently, we have 973 men behind bars, and I go there every month to meet with them, sit with them, talk with them. And it has just become a passion for me because over the years, I recognize that society hasn't really been very good to our men. And coming from a girl, I had to take a lot of hits for that. But it is just the reality because I work with men every day. So the space that I'm in, I get to hear them, guys. I get to hear their heart because there's no emotion attached to me. So they could tell me whatever and know that there's no judgment. And so the more I talk with men is the more I recognize that I need to do this. Somebody needs to become an advocate, and why not me?
Wow, that's very powerful. And I love the fact that you also have this spiritual background, right? So you have the scientific and the spiritual. So how does that play when it comes to talking with men about what they've experienced?
I think it's my greatest asset, actually. And when I got into psychology, I became a better Christian. I understood the word of God better because now, for example, when you hear, in Proverbs, it speaks that as a man thinketh, so is he. It wasn't until I understood the mind and how the mind works that actually came to life for me. So when I speak to people, especially men, y'all are just your logical beings, And so when I speak to men, I think what it is for me, psychology on top of Christianity is almost like my 3D glasses. It's like I go to watch a 3D movie and I put my glasses on and everything comes to life for you. And so it helps me to break down each. So think about this. Now, Maslow's hierarchy, of needs, it speaks to the spiritual needs. That's one of the needs, until you get to self-actualization. So every person has a need to connect to a higher being. But there are some persons that they don't really want to hear about God, but I can use science to get to them and then involve God. And so it actually has been my greatest asset. Listen to this. I did my bachelor's in Christian counseling psychology, my master's in Christian counseling psychology. Then I did forensic, a master's in forensic, which was secular.
What is forensics? No, sorry.
No, I want to ask. I want to pull back as well. I want to understand the clinical, the forensic, but I also want to ask you, how long have you been practicing?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, so I've been practicing since COVID, actually, but I've been trained before that and had my master's before that. But I ran a beauty school, been in beauty for 25 years, simultaneously with psychology and ministry. So of course, everybody call you, you're the counselor that everybody calls, but I never put myself out there or label myself as a therapist or a counselor or a psychologist. It wasn't until COVID and persons right now reaching out to me, and I had to close my beauty school. And I'm like, you know what? It probably is about time I get my license. And so it was during that time that I did my license. And when I had to do my license, they asked me for a course called psychopathology. And I've never done that course when I did my master's degree. And so I wouldn't get the license without doing psychopathology, which is a study of diseases, mental health diseases. And so what I did now, I started looking for colleges that I could just do this one course without having to enroll and do a full degree. But when I did the course, I found out that the course came from a degree called forensic psychology. And then at the time I was dealing with some things which we could talk about another time, but it struck me and I go, you know what? It would really, really be interested to understand the mind of a criminal. Why do people make the decisions that they do? Because nobody was born a criminal. Nobody was born a criminal. Something happened along the line, guys, that would have caused you to make those decisions that you do. And I became very curious. So I deferred my PhD and went back to school to do forensic and another master's in forensic psychology.
So I want to ask you this. You talked about 3D glasses. You said when you got this, when you merged the two together, right? The
Yeah.
spiritual and the clinical, that it was like going to the movies. And any of us know when you go to the movies and you see a movie in 3D, you're seeing the movie in a greater depth, right?
Yes.
You're seeing it in a greater perspective. What is something that kind of stood out to you when you started to study, when you started to find out different things dealing with the mind per se and dealing with people? Or is there anything that once you start to see this, it gave you a greater look at the mind or a greater understanding of the way that people move?
Yeah, great question, and thank you for that. There's a book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. I don't know if you guys have heard it. It's written in 1925. You have to read it. It's an hour read. In that book, Florence Kovachin, she talks about just the things that we believe, and we hear this over and over. We see these books, Think and Go Rich, As a Man Thinketh, all these things. So what came alive for me, and let me break this down. So you have the conscious mind and you have the subconscious mind, right?
Oh, you talking good to me now.
So the only role of the subconscious mind is to perform whatever the conscious mind feeds it. So let me go a little bit deeper. So I live in the country. Carlos, you know this. I'm in the country. I'm dealing with plants and vegetation all day. So let's say you have the soil that you put your plant in, okay? Whatever plant. Choose a plant. Choose a rose, okay? You get some rose seeds and you're going to plant it in that dirt, in that soil, whatever you call it. And then you have some poison ivy and you put the poison ivy in another pot of dirt. Remember, the dirt is not subjective. The dirt it doesn't care.
Yeah.
Whatever you put in there, the only role of that soil is to put life to whatever you plant in. Okay? Now, when the Bible says, as a man think in his heart, so is he. Now, psychology is teaching you that your thoughts, whatever your thoughts are, your subconscious mind only role is to put form to that. When that hit, that was it. That was it. Everything else come to life for me. I started seeing everything differently, and it helps me to help my clients to now understand that. Think about this. If your thought can make you happy, it means that your thought can make you sick. So I was now able to show clients that a lot of the biological symptoms that you're facing is actually psychosomatic. So it begins with a thought. So if you change your thought, you can change your biology. You could change what is happening to your body. This is what trauma does to the body. There's a book that says the body keeps the score. It speaks about how the body locks in trauma, and then we saw it coming out later on in life, and we don't even understand why is this happening? Why is this happening? But the body keeps the score.
I got a question, Rob, but you might have to go, man, because I can go on this part all day.
No, I mean, I love it because we're getting into the passion of what you do. But again, this is about Black Dad Unfiltered. And really, so one of the reasons why I want to talk about this is, and in the previous show I told Los, one of the things that I struggled with was being raised in my culture and then having to assimilate to an American culture. So when I go home, it's literally a different world for me. And I was someone, through schools had issues, behavioral issues. And then when I started parenting, I had to start asking myself these tough questions. What am I carrying from when I was younger? And that's affecting my kids. When I started noticing it was easier for me to be closer to my daughters than my son, what is happening? And then as I started diving into this, because, it's a constant work to be a better father.
Yes.
I started saying to myself, how many other men are experiencing this?
Right.
It can't just be me, realizing that I had anger issues growing up, or I had attachment issues, or whatever issues that were out there. And so I really want to start bringing this back into, how do you see trauma impacting sons and fathers, or fathers and how they interact with their children, or stopping men from stepping into the role of a father. I think I really want to start diving into that.
Yes, guys, let me just commend both of you for even taking this on, because this is so necessary. Trauma begins in the womb. Just process that for a minute.
What you mean?
Trauma begins in the womb.
I gotta ask you how.
Okay, so the fetus has the ability to assimilate all the emotions that the mom is feeling. So this is why you have some things that are hereditary. Trauma begins in the womb. Okay.
Wait a minute, Dawn. I don't want to cut you off, but this is informal. We're family. You're telling me while in the womb, that fetus can absorb whatever their carrier mother is. Wow.
Yeah. Do you understand?
Apparently, I don't.
But do you understand why we have to be having these conversations? Think about a mother who is going through depression, or something I'm going to speak to you guys about, and I guess this is a great space to interject. It's called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. Okay. Now, ACEs are those things. Okay, so this was developed about 20-something years ago, and they did some research. I don't know the whole history of it, but pretty much ACEs is an assessment tool that I use in my practice. It doesn't matter what you come to me for. You're filling out an ACEs form, because I started recognizing similarities among my clients. So I started giving everybody an ACEs form, okay? ACEs cover things like, it's 10 questions. It covers things like physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. Was there depression in the family? Was there domestic violence in the family? All these things are things that are coming out, okay? Now, on the ACEs, if you score even 1, remember there's 10. If you score even 1, there is a high chance of you falling into depression, alcoholism, divorce, can't keep a relationship, even just 1 out of the 10. Did you know that the average person score between 1 and 4? So now let me break that down a little bit more. So we have, let's say we have a child. Let me use me. Perfect. Let me use me. Okay. So one of the questions is, have you ever lost a parent due to death, divorce, abandonment? Or my answer was yes. My parents were divorced.
I have both of those. I have divorce and father passed
and death. Okay, so I had divorce and abandonment because my father up and left my mom with 5 children. At 22, my mother was married with 5 children, okay? Wow. My dad left when she was about 30. And because I was 10. And he has never returned. He has never returned to Jamaica. His body returned to Jamaica and we buried him. We flew his body back from New York. So just imagine, that is a traumatic experience that we don't understand, that trauma lived with us, and it geared or structured how I view relationships and how I view men. So the minute a guy was trying to get too close to me, I backed off and I'm gone, because you're going to leave me. You're going to abandon me. I did not recognize that until when I started studying psychology. And now I'm assessing myself and I'm like, oh my goodness, is this what was happening here? Right? Think about that, right? Now, what I'm recognizing, guys, is that about 90% of my female clients have been either molested or raped. Did you hear me? At least 90% of them. So when I have women come to me and they're just bitter all the time, and they snap at the men and they're angry at the men, and so when I dig up and I do their ACEs, somebody molested them. Now, and I want you to get this, the brain is not fully developed until age 25. So what's going to happen when a 6-year-old child is dealing with abandonment from a parent, most times a dad, and then somebody's molesting you, do you realize that there now become imbalances in the brain? So most of the time you realize that they don't develop as well as they should. They don't make decisions. You ever meet some guys and they just can't make a decision for them? They can't make a decision for themselves.
Yeah.
And you wonder, where is that coming from? That's coming from childhood. That's coming from your ACEs. What are those experiences that you have? And then, Coach, I heard you mention attachment earlier. Your attachment style is developed by how you were nurtured. So let me go back and use me again. Now, just imagine you're 30 years old. You have been having children since you were 16, because at 16, my mom had both my sisters. My sisters are twins. So all you knew how to do to have babies and take care of them. You have never worked. You don't know how to work. You barely have any education. Now this man is gone. What kind of nurturing you going to give these kids? You upset, frustrated every day. So guess what happened now? Kids are getting slapped every day, even the dogs getting slapped for things they didn't do. So now children are dealing with physical abuse, emotional abuse, and they're supposed to grow up and become normal people. How?
Dawn, I want to interject. Oh, Los, I see you getting ready to say something.
Yeah, can I ask this question? Because I think, did you mention the book, The Body Keeps the Score? I know we've talked about that book before.
Mm-hmm. She did.
And in this space of talking about trauma, starts in the womb. And when these decisions are made, and when we go through these different things, according to the ACEs, you said if we have 1 out of the 10,
even just one.
So I've heard this in another podcast that I was watching before, Certified Man, KD Ball, and I watched it.
Gotcha.
Well,
No, do your thing.
What if it's
add to my trauma, Los?
I can't even say what if it's a side chick, because that's just doesn't even sound right.
But continue.
So he's talking to his therapist, and he was saying that when we're hungry, our brain is telling us that feeling is hunger. When we're thirsty, our brain is telling us that feeling is we're thirsty. And then he gave the example that when we go through trauma, then our brain is telling us that it's trauma, but you're hungry or you're thirsty before your brain tells you. And therefore, if you're hungry before and then your brain is telling you, you're thirsty before and then your brain is telling you, what is that trauma telling us? Does that question make sense? If we're experiencing it first, the body keeps the score. As a fetus, we're experiencing this. What is this trauma telling us?
Okay, so let me define trauma just so everybody understand what we're talking about. And it's like a deeply distressed experience. Okay, and so trauma varies for people, and also something that might be distressful for me may not be distressful for somebody else. So, trauma is different for people. All right. But Carlos, think about a Rottweiler running you down. It's chasing you. Okay. And coach trying to ask you a question in that moment with you trying to run. What are you thinking about? Are you going to stop and even pay him?
No, I'm trying to get away from this Rottweiler. Right.
You're trying to get away from the Rottweiler because the brain is developed for flight or fight, right? So right now you're in flight mode. But when that Rottweiler stop chasing you, you stop, the body calm down, and you come back to equilibrium. When you are going through distress, trauma, people are, just imagine running from a Rottweiler every day of your life. Just imagine that. And that's what life is for some people. They never stop running. And, when you are in that space, you can't create. You can't think. You're only thinking of surviving.
Gotcha.
There are so many of our Black men that are in survival mode all their lives.
Say that again. So I want to make sure I get that. So you're saying, especially I said earlier that as a Black man, it's almost impossible to grow up in America or anywhere for that matter.
Anywhere. Anywhere.
without experiencing trauma from your childhood, teenage years, or at some point in your life. And so that means you're in a state of survival continuously.
You'll see.
And so, Los, this adds to what we're talking about, because the responsibilities you still have to be the leader, provider, protector. So where do you get this moment to your point, stop running, get to equilibrium? It's as if you don't until you transition.
Is that
From
why we desire peace so much?
This-
Because we being chased by Rottweilers and people asking us questions.
Now we got a show. Let's do this. We're unfiltered,
No.
Dawn. Throw your
Yeah.
filter away. Throw your coffee maker away. Throw everything out.
We'll get rid of it.
I just need some water. But guys, I'm glad you're getting this, because this is exactly what is happening. And I think this is why I have this soft spot for men. Believe you me, I've had my share of heartbreak, and I really should just hate y'all, But
Especially me. But go ahead.
right, but
It means
I
you're looking this good, Los.
right, the person who knows better do better, and I recognize that there's so many men that don't even know themselves, because they've never been given the opportunity to stop surviving. Now, what do you think is happening when you're running away from a Rottweiler? There's more stress hormones that is being built, so you have more cortisol that is being released in the body. What is that also doing to the physical body? That's why we have so many men with diabetes, hypertension. They have all these things that are going on because you're overproducing. You're constantly producing too much stress hormones.
So you explained it, what trauma is. I'm digging in a little bit more. Maybe it's me because I feel like I'm sitting on the couch, so I'm digging in a little bit
It's a free
more.
session.
Right? You said that. Let me explain what trauma is first, and that illustration of running from a Rottweiler and somebody asking you a question. That's what the trauma is.
Yeah.
Can you delve into what is the body telling us? Like, what is, when it's in trauma, the mind is saying, okay, you're in trauma. Like, what is the body saying? I know that it might not be just one broad answer, but
Right.
What are the symptoms, right?
What
We're
are
saying,
some of
like,
the
how does
symptoms?
it show itself? Okay.
How does it
great
show
question,
itself?
Los.
And when it's showing itself, what is it telling us? Is it telling us you've been in a traumatic situation?
Right. So let's start with headaches. Let's start with physical pains. You start feeling physical pains. You start feeling outside of the regular, oh, my heart is beating faster sort of thing. But most of the time you start feeling pains. You start feeling chest pains. It just feels tight, or back pains, and you're having all these aches and pains and you can't even understand what is going on. You talk about low mood. You start feeling depressed. You start feeling anxious. Anger in men is one of the biggest sign of trauma, because the anger is not necessarily for something that is happening in this moment, but it is your response because of the trauma that has happened and how you have responded to the trauma, or how the body has responded to the trauma. So, for example, since as I started out with the Rottweiler, let's say, Coach, you're passing Carlos's house and his dog rushed you. And okay, you calm down, you left. The next time you get to Carlos's house, what do you think is going to happen?
I'm gonna slow down. Like,
Did you think about it? Did you get up and say, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Carlos's house today, and I'm going to have to slow down"? No, the body, that's stored in the body. It reminds you that there was something there. You know what it is? Sometimes we don't even slow down to listen. We don't slow down to listen to what our bodies are telling us. It speaks to us. God created this body to heal itself. Did you know that? The body is the greatest pharmacy.
Dawn, so taking that example that you just said about going to calls, is this the same thing in relationships?
Yes.
When you experience pain in relationship, you don't take time to register it, but once you're in another one, and let's call it a trigger happens, all of a sudden the body brings up all the past. All right, Pastor Dawn.
Like you said, now we got a show.
This is why it is so important that you're raising your voices even louder than this. Guys, this is Because when a woman will go talk to her girlfriend and men are still not talking, they're still not talking because they still have not connected the dots yet. You know, they haven't connected the dots yet, and they don't feel safe yet because guess what? You still have not given a vacation. You haven't given a vacation from leading, providing, and protecting. You haven't been given a vacation to say, hey, sit down and even breathe. So it doesn't matter what is going on, you still have to fulfill these expectations, you know, that society puts on you.
So let's, and I got a bunch of stuff I want to say. So, you know, hopefully you ate before you got to this show. So, because obviously we're talking about men, but the trauma could be man or woman, right?
Oh, it's even worse for women.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So let's put the societal pressure then, right? Because we're talking about men are constantly in survival mode and the responsibility society put on them. And now we're talking about women. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up before I dive further into the question is one of the reasons why Carlos and I really did this show was, one, we want to change the narrative. Two, society has been pitting black man against black woman. They've been
I was trying to be quiet, but go ahead.
Yeah, they're pitting us against each other, right? When, you know, I personally believe if we can start healing, then all of a sudden, why can't more collaborative? So tell me how it shows up different.
How come we can't be together? How come we can't be for the black woman what she needs, be for the black man what he needs? Because we both know we're dealing with trauma. Instead of us saying,
do we know we're dealing with trauma?
I'm dealing with trauma too.
How do you know?
I'm dealing with stuff too. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm talking about my own stuff.
So let me ask you both a question. Let me ask you both a question.
Sure.
Why didn't the slave owners allow the slaves to learn how to read?
Once a
to keep him separated,
he's unfit to be a slave.
If he's educated, then he's strengthened by knowledge and also able to get together.
Okay. So when a black woman understands her black man and a black man understands his black woman, what do you think is going to happen?
Infinite power.
Joy, oh beautiful joy.
I will say no more.
But so how's the show different then, right? Because ultimately, I think we all can agree that if we can get through the murk of society and deal with what's happened to us, whether it's generational or in real time, but let's just see, how does the show different between men and women? I really want to get there. And then I got something else I want to bring back that you said earlier.
What's up? We are Black Dad Unfiltered. We are here to change the narrative through authentic conversation for black men, and particularly black fathers. We thank you for joining us here on this episode. Please like the channel, subscribe to the channel, send a comment to the channel. Let us know the information that you like. Let us know what's speaking towards you. We'll be sure to stay in touch with you as well. Thank you.
So remember that women are emotional beings.
Sure.
Women experience words.
Okay, for our listeners, that was Dawn. She's a woman who said that. It wasn't the guys. We didn't say that. We just said amen, but we didn't say it.
You sound scared. You sound scared, Los. I'm going to say it with you. Dawn said that, folks.
My man.
All right, guys, throw me under the bus. I'm in Jamaica. I'm in Jamaica, okay? But women are emotional beings. That's how we are built. We experience the things that happen to us over and over. We have a womb to carry life. So a woman will take a traumatic experience and relive it over and over and over again.
Wow.
This is why.
Before you go, don't forget. So I want to say that because my mind, you're saying women relive it. Men can't stop to even know what they've experienced.
There you go.
Holy shoot. Go ahead, continue. I hate to cut you off, but moments like that. Yeah.
No. So think about it. You'll have a guy and he may, let's say, divorce. Okay. That's something I'm very familiar with. So
that's both of us. That's everybody here.
There we go. Okay. So the man may move on. married, have 6 more kids. And this woman is still talking every day. Oh, but he did this and what he did and that. And you're reliving this thing. And every time you talk about it, you're experiencing the same emotions that you felt when it first happened. And we're more fragile. I mean, we're fragile. You know what I mean? When a man can, it hits a woman a little bit harder. And so you find a lot more women falling into clinical depression, deep depression. Do you remember there was a time that you have never seen Prozac or anything, and none of those with a man in the ad? Never. It's all, think about it. It's always women that you see in those ads. So for years, it almost looked and felt as though mental health problems only for women.
That's heavy. I mean, biblically, we all three of us know it. The Bible says the women are the weaker vessel. But one of the best way I've ever heard that explained was, if you look that up, the interpretation is not weaker vessel; it's the more delicate vessel.
It's delicate,
right? And you don't take a crystal glass and put it on the edge of the table because it's delicate.
Right.
So it's not necessarily that she's just weak; she's more delicate. She's precious.
Right.
Be handled that way. And like I said, we could just be that for the Black woman. And she could just be our peace.
You know what?
The world will be all right.
You know what? I want to thank Dawn right now, because as you're talking, and I know we are an audio podcast and we post this on YouTube, people may see me just drifting. Had I known that previous partners in my life, just the way by design, relive it, it may have made me more empathetic.
I would have moved different. The same way you were saying that, right? I'm thinking of, wow, I could have done that different. I could have handled this person different. I could have talked to my mother different. Like, you know what I'm saying? The same thing you're saying is the same thing I'm hearing when I heard that.
Yeah.
Which makes me go to say back to slavery, not learn how to read. If we were educated, then we could show up better for each other.
And this
go
is
ahead, Rod.
This is why we're doing this, so that, again, for us, we're just having conversation. We don't know right from wrong. We just know what we feel and we share it. And Dawn, I'm going to pass it on to you real quick. But I don't want to forget, because you said something that was powerful. And I know you're going to massively tie this in. You said from the womb, we experienced trauma. Then you went on to say, and I can't quote it exactly, but levels of trauma, especially as you're young, create a chemical imbalance in the brain, which is telling me now, and this is where it gets deep.
Yeah.
It has physical implications.
Yes.
So if you don't know what's happening to you, but it's showing itself up in your body. On top of that, you don't have time to stop to understand it. On top of that, you really can't understand it till you turn 25. Hot darn it, folks. This is why you need a father. This is why. Because my son, it explains it to me. He does not know. And by design, he should not be expected to know. But
he ain't
as
old
a
enough.
40-year-old man, as a father, it is my responsibility to have these conversations with therapists like Dawn, and put my son in an environment where he can stop.
But even while you're saying that, and Dawn, I know you're gonna say something too.
Sorry,
like you said, it's needed. You said, Rod, it's needed for our children because we should understand that they're young enough that their brain isn't even fully developed. But then, like you said, men need to know that, and that's why you need fathers, because the father should be able to say, my son's 21. He ain't old enough. Let me approach him. Let me guide him, and let me instruct him the way that I should, because at this age, he just don't even understand. And some stuff he don't even know he don't understand.
And how do we let him stop? Dawn, you got me with this. How do we let his subconscious, if I'm saying it right, Dawn, stop, so he can get to equilibrium? Dawn, take it off.
So what we do, we change his conscious mind. And it's so simple. All right.
So simple.
Yesterday. Oh, very simple.
I've been trying this for 18 years. So simple.
So simple. Coach, yesterday at the conference, one of the speakers, now this is an
What conference was this again?
it's an investment. It's called Realign, Moving the Barriers. So I guess investing into the Caribbean.
Mhm.
And one of the speakers, can we name drop on here? One of the speakers, great guy. Okay, one of the David Mullings. Awesome. I mean, brilliant guy. And he's talking about investment and he's breaking it down. I didn't hear none of that. I took notes, but that's not what I heard. Today I made a post and I had to post the importance of a father, the importance of fathers in the home. This young man, every other sentence was, oh yeah. And then my dad had asked me this question and said that I needed to do this. And then my dad, every single thing I heard, my dad, my dad, my dad. Guess who was sitting in the audience yesterday to hear their son present?
His dad.
His dad. Oh my God. This
Who was he?
crowd-
Go ahead, you can say his name. What's his name?
I'm hearing
His
some
name,
feedback
his,
here.
his name is David Mullings. Brilliant, brilliant. His sessions, his session was powerful. But the psychologist in me didn't care about money yesterday. All I heard was this young man having his father guiding him every step of the way. And I thought, this is what it looks like to have a father guiding you. This is the opposite of what we're experiencing now. All right. Now, I've done a couple of shows talking about the impact of fatherlessness. The first one was on men. And then the radio station, they got so many views, they asked me to come back. So we did one on women because it differs from men and women. But here's the thing. How do you ask fathers who haven't gotten it to now give it to their sons? You can't give what you don't have.
Talk about
You
it.
just can't. So this is why it's important for sessions like these, for conversations like these, and for men to stop, recognize that, hey, I need help. I think it was one of you guys that said, when you get to that place, when you recognize that you need help, be strong enough, be bold enough to ask for the help. Because
Vulnerability.
Right, your vulnerability. You're going to need to ask for help. So what I do with my boys, I have two boys. I have a daughter and I have two boys. But when I became divorced and now I'm a mother, I'm a single mother with these 3 kids. And I feel like I was losing my mind. Now, I can't think psychology. I'm a mom. I don't think psychology when I'm I forgot that I'm a psychologist. I forgot. And so when my son got very angry, he was just angry. He was just everything. Every door in the house had a dent. Man, I haven't even spoken about this open. Every door in the house had a dent. And I recognized, all right, Dawn, you can't raise this boy. Don't try and fool yourself. So I got him into boxing. And he started boxing with the guys who box locally, for the country. And the first time I dropped him off, the coach pulled me aside when I went back for him and he goes, okay, Mom, speak to me. What's up with this boy? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, he barely said a word today, blase, blase. And I said, look, I'm going through a divorce. I think that's what's happening. And he said, say no more. Say no more. Guys, this group of men took my son and turned him into an amazing young man to the place where he was now leading the cool down. Is that what you call it, Carlos, when you finish workout and you need to?
That's exactly that. Yep. Cool down, come down. Yep.
Right. Look, men, it was the men who were able to now speak to him. So here's where you change. When I said it's easy, you change what the conscious mind is saying. I'm strong. I'm confident. People just say, oh, it's affirmations. Yes, it's affirmations, but you say it long enough, the subconscious mind doesn't know if it's right or wrong. The subconscious mind only role is to put form to whatever you feeds it.
Say it again. Say it again slowly. The subconscious mind's only role is to
put form to whatever you feed it.
Holy, and that could
That's
be words.
all. That's all. That's all it does. It does. This is why. Okay. For example, you ever go into the store and you say, "Oh, don't forget the milk." You go to the store, you forget the milk.
Get the milk.
Right, because it doesn't know forget it. It just here forget milk. Now there's a okay. So here's what. This is why I am is the greatest phrase. You can achieve anything that comes after I am, and we're our children of God right here. You know, Moses asked, he said, "Who should I tell them that sent me?" He
About
said,
to have me talking.
I am. So anything that comes after I am, the subconscious mind, the role is to put that
I gotta say it.
form. Right? So one more thing. In Isaiah, I think it's 37 or 19, somewhere about there, it says, "I, God, create the fruits of your lips." Again, we're talking about words, the fruit of your lips. So if God is going to create the fruits of your lips with the subconscious mind, when the subconscious mind hear the fruit of your lips, it is going to create it. What do you want to create?
Oh!
I gotta say this because the I am factor. Say it again.
Is it a grandfather quote?
I got a grandfather quote to follow up what I'm about to say. I got you.
People wanted those.
The powerful thing about the I am factor states that whatever you say after I am has to be. And God knows how powerful the I am factor is, so much so that God did not say, "Tell them I am strength hit me." He didn't say, "Tell them I am salvation." He didn't tell them, "Say I am joy." Because if he said I am any of those things, he would have limited himself to those things. Therefore, he said, "I am that I am."
Guys, men are into cars.
I got a grandfather quote. I'm gonna let Dawn go first, though. I got you, Rod.
Let me tell you this. I was teaching a series on the Holy Spirit. Okay, and I don't know how I came across a video with Rolls Royce. I love, maybe it's because I love Rolls Royce. I love the Ghost series, okay?
Okay, so Dawn, the Ghost Rolls Royce.
It's man. Anyway, I'm throwing it out there, you know? So anyway, guys, this is so exciting. Listen to this. The story says a man purchased one of the Ghost series, and he didn't see any horsepower. There was nothing that spoke to the horsepower of the car. So he called into the salesperson, blase. He got a letter saying, dear Mr. Spencer, thank you for buying blase. The horsepower to the Rolls Royce is sufficient. Okay. Where does that tie into Holy Spirit? Remember, I'm preparing a course to teach on the Holy Spirit. Right there, it showed me that the Holy Spirit in your life is sufficient. Coach, remember, what you need may be different from what Carlos needs, but the Holy Spirit is still sufficient for whatever you need. Of course. Right? So it's the same thing with the I am. This is why God couldn't say, Carlos, he couldn't say, tell them I am God, because it would have stopped there. It would have stopped right there. It's tell them that I am said you. Now, you may not need confidence, right? Because you may have confidence. So you don't necessarily have to say, I am confident for the subconscious mind to get that. But you may need strength. So when you say, I am strong, that's what the subconscious mind is going to hear. Its only role is to find ways and means to bring that to fruition. So number one, we have to now understand that whether we want to believe in God or not, we cannot deny the fact of a higher being. And all these books, Think and Grow Rich, The Richest Man, all these books that has to do with mind, it's all coming from the word of God. As a man thinketh, so is he. Psychology, the Bible is the greatest psychology book. Jesus Christ was the greatest psychologist that has ever walked the earth. Everything that I'm learning in psychology was already written right there in the Bible. It's the same thing that science is trying to tell you. So you want to change your life, you have to change your words. You have to, because whatever you are feeling consciously is what your subconscious mind is going to give you.
So, and that goes back to what we said, the importance of course, our podcast, Black, Dawn, Unfiltered, the importance of having a father. Rao, like you were saying, the importance of having a father to be able to instruct you and tell you something. Like Dawn, you said with your son, okay, I got to get him around some men to be able to instruct him. Grandfather quote of the day. My grandfather said, if I tell you what's up Fool's Hill, there's no reason for you to go up Fool's Hill just to come back and tell me, Granddaddy, you was right.
You were right. Yeah.
He did it again, folks. He did it.
Listen,
oh my God.
So fathers instructing us things, letting us know things, learning things to tell us things so we don't have to go and learn the thing by actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
I wish I could say that again.
I gotta repeat it because Lowe's got a little southern twang to him. If I tell you what's up Fool's Hill, there's no need you going up Fool's Hill to tell me.
Only to tell me.
You was right. You was right.
So I love it. Folks, Dawn, people love this stuff now. I keep getting stopped. Oh, Carlos quote. Well, they call him Los now, so I'm trying to deliberately call him Carlos. But Dawn, I don't want to forget this because you mentioned it earlier. And this is always, for me, it's always a sensitive topic because unfortunately, the statistics say if you have women in your life, there's a good chance they're going to be single mothers. That's just the statistics. But it's a very touchy. I'm afraid to have the conversation about why you can't raise a boy, right? Because the statistics say in the United States that actually when children are raised in a single family home that's led by the father, they actually do better society-wise. But how do I have this conversation with a woman and say, hey, listen, you can't raise a man. You can give the child love. You can nurture this child, but for what he's designed to be, you may not be able to fulfill everything he needs from a male perspective. Or am I off base by even thinking I should entertain a conversation like that?
No, you're not off base at all because, I had to speak to a group of mothers, and the first thing I had to say to them, you're not just raising a son, you're raising somebody's husband.
Okay, you're doing this too. Okay, I'm going to come with something. Go ahead, Dawn.
It's the reality, and you have to look at it at that. I think many mothers just see I'm raising my son, and that's okay. So you're raising a boy, and even when he's 25, you're raising a boy, and he gets married, and he can't make a decision with his wife because he still has to go back home to mommy mommy has to make those decisions for him. I mean, trust me, we could go there. And, for the females watching this, it's no put down. Mothers have raised children by themselves for centuries, and we have to commend them.
Absolutely.
We have to commend them. But I've also seen the difference with the boys that the mothers raise. And it's no fault of the mother because she just didn't know. She just didn't know. It's just like, though I work with men, there are some conversations I'm inviting a man into the conversation because I can only go but so far with a man. There's some things I just can't relate to, and it will be better appreciated and understood coming from a man. We have to get that. Now, even just think about it. A mother the children just literally, it's not necessarily have more respect for the father, but it's kind of like have more fear. If the things that they'll do around the mother, they won't even dare do it around the father. So I remember my mom, before my dad left, my mom would wait till your father come. And my father wasn't a beater. He wouldn't really beat us, but it's just his presence. Yeah. There's something about his presence, and this is why God put man in the garden first. That's creation right there. A man was said to be the head. Now, a mother can raise a child because let's say you chop your arm off, guess what? You can still survive and survive very well. But if you chop your head off, that's it. You're dead. You're dead. And if the man is the head and we chop him off, we chop that off. This is why we have so many societal problems. All our social problems can link back to the home. Let me tell you something. I was doing a forensic interview a couple months ago, and the young man, forensic interview, forensic, which means he has gone to prison. This man said to me, Miss Petgrave, if I had my father, I would never go to prison.
Wow.
You know what? Me and my brother, because I grew up Caribbean. Now, I'm going to leave it there because you understand what that means, Dawn.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, good. And when we got, and all my Caribbean folks know exactly what that means. When we got older, and this is my god brother, but we're, by all intents and purposes, we're blood brothers.
Right.
When we got older, I said to him, you know what? I'm grateful because there's a few things that I've never done. I've never had a child out of wedlock, and I'm not condemning anyone who has, but I just never did. I've never experimented with drugs. I've never had alcohol abuse. I've never even thought about crime. I was very much, okay, I want to be a good citizen. It wasn't because I was loved. It's because my father made it very clear there are no other choices or alternatives. So it was really the fear of my dad that kept me in alignment.
There we go.
And then as I got older, maybe my late 20s, going into my 30s, I was like, thank you. Because when I now can sit back and look at all the traps that society has laid out, I sideswiped all of them. Me and Carlos played football together. We were on scholarship. And I would see teammates just lose scholarships and be willy-nilly or be alcoholics by the time we're 19 or dependent on drugs. And I was like, how is this? How do you guys even have access to this? And then when I got older, I realized my father made sure, come whatever may be, this ain't gonna be the life you live. And so that was very important to me. But you said something, Dawn, that really, really resonated with me. Because you said women have to also understand they're raising a husband and not just a son, right? And if we're talking in traditional values,
Right.
and I heard, I don't know if you heard this guy, Los, but Charleston White, right? He's like the new sensation. He's very vulgar, but there's a lot of gems in what he says. He actually spoke about that women are raising these husbands, and so they're raising wives. They're not raising husbands.
That's it.
Right? And so it's really, one, it's helping me understand how great my responsibility is, but it's also allowing me to have a conversation with any young woman or any young man and say, listen, this is what's happening. This is how we're going to perpetuate this ugly cycle. We got to figure this out. To be able to lift up the man or lift up the woman.
Well, we're saying, here on Black Dad Unfiltered, man, where we have some men watching, I think it's an important thing to say that it's important for you fathers to continue to be a part of your children's lives.
Absolutely.
One, how we know we talk about changing the narrative. One, we know a lot of men who are in their children's lives. Like, that's not the thing that society is painting. Men aren't there, fathers aren't there. That happens sometimes, but there are some men who are there. So I want to point out those who are doing it, and maybe it's difficult. Maybe you're fighting through something. Maybe it's difficult at times. Maybe you're being chased by that Rottweiler while you try to parent your child, right? But I'm saying, for right in the midst of what we're saying, this conversation, the importance of it, keep fighting, man. Keep fighting for your child. Keep being present, because our sons, what I hear is our children in particular, but even more in particular, our sons, they need us. They need us to be present. They need us to be in their lives. And this is coming from somebody who, my dad died when I was 19, right? I had my grandfather there, but I didn't have that picture of a father like what you had in your home, Rod. I didn't have that. And since my dad died, I didn't have that to grow up around. And so I'm striving to be that for my children. And hearing this conversation makes me say even more, wow, you really need to make sure that you're in your children's lives, and you really need to make sure that you're helping your sons to become men and husbands one day.
I got two questions. Dawn, I know you want to, but two questions.
Yes.
One, piggybacking off what you said, Lo. So this is a statement less than a question. It's because I know for me, sometimes it feels like a thankless job, and we're not in this for thanks. But again, for those who are feeling like this is a lose-lose situation, when you're facing obstacles and trying to be a father, keep pushing forward. Keep pushing forward. And the second part is this, and I'm tie it back because I think in a weird way, women live in their emotions. They live it every day. So if you're a woman raising a son, does that mean you almost raise your son to live in his emotions every day? And almost move away from the logical? Because you need a logical person if you're going to have this unit.
And this is why I will always encourage women who are raising sons, if the father is not present, well, even before I go there,
sure,
let us not use the children against the fathers, because those are some of the complaints that I get from fathers that I work with, that they want to have a relationship with their children, but the women are not allowing them. Let us not do that. It doesn't even matter what the situation is. If this man is willing to have a relationship with his child, I think we need to allow them to do that. Let me tell you something. A child can grow up in the most beautiful home and they found out they're adopted, and the first thing they want to do is to find their biological parents. Not that their parents weren't good to them. It's just something that is innate in them. You know, I remember when I moved to America for college, the first thing I did was find my dad. I never stopped my mother. Mad. I mean, she was upset at me. And not only did I find him, but let me tell you something. I found all my brothers that's from different mothers, and my mother didn't like it. He was my father. He was a part of me. I wanted that. I mean, I longed for it. I wanted to see him. And you know what? I could have been mad. I could have. But you know what I saw? I looked at us and I looked at our lives and I was like, man, he's missing out. He has these amazing children and he's missing out on that, right? And so going back to the mothers that are raising sons, this is why we have some men who walks more in their feminine and they can't make logical decision because they've never seen it. Do you understand what I'm saying? They've never seen it. They've never experienced it because they were raised with their mothers. Now, if that's all you are seeing every day of your life, that is what you are going to assimilate. So this is why it is so important that if you fall in that situation where you're left to raise your sons, get him on a football, get him in sports, get him in some youth group, get an uncle, get a cousin. I mean, there was a young man at church, and I'm still just every day, I'm grateful for this young man. He would come on Saturdays, every other Saturday, and all he did was play games with my boys. That's all he did. They would get up early, they would do their chores, and he would play this thing, whatever, Nintendo, whatever games they play. And then they would go outside and we have a big yard and he would play. And then some weekends, that's how my kids went to Blue Mountain. They climbed Blue Mountain Peak because he challenged them to do these things. So here were these men from church who got involved with my sons and they were taking them to men's retreat so they could be around other men and see how men act and hear how men. So they were doing those things. The things that I could have done, I spoke to my sons about money. I spoke to them about money. I remember saying, my son would always call, Mom, you know, my friends are hanging out and I want to go. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it. And I saw the look on his face, but I started breaking it down for him. No, I am not going to put the financial burden to say, hey, the mortgage is this and that. No, you don't do that to the children. But you stop and you break things down for them. Oops, right?
Sorry.
Here's what I started doing. So my car is a library, but usually I would have, you know, I would play in my Bluetooth, and my son would always plug something in his ears. One day I went to, he was performing, he's a singer. He was performing in a choir and I went to pick up his suit And the tailor told me I don't have a suit for him because he wasn't measured. So I said, the show is tomorrow. How can you not have a suit for him? And so the man was there just giving me the runaround. And I said, sir, I don't think you understand. My son used his summer to do music camp to prepare for this concert tomorrow. Help me out because he has to be in this. So anyway, the man broke it down. He says, well, I can't get you a suit, but I could at least do a vest. And, and I'm like, good, we'll take it. Okay. We got back to the car. This is my son, Mom. So he went like this, touch me. And I said, what that's for? He goes, that's what the man was talking about in the book. I was listening to the compound. He's like, so you were listening. So all this time, this boy is driving with me. He has these things plugged in his ears. He's listening to what I'm listening to. You know what I did? I switched all the books I'm listening to. Now I started playing the things I wanted him to hear. So I started playing Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? I started playing The Alchemist. I started playing all these books. Guess what happened? One day I picked him up from school and he goes, Mom, did you know that I forgot whose network? Did you know that so-and-so network is like $3 billion? And Mom, explain net worth to me. There goes the conversation now. So I could now say, Sergio, as a man, you're going to be expected to provide for your home. This is why it's important when grandma gives you your birthday money and you get your birthday money. This is why we go open up an investment account. So guess what? This kid has his investment account. And his birthday money started going there. And I give him my logins so he watches it. So he understands what is going on. Now, if we're not doing that for our sons, they get to 30 and we expect them to be married and to run a home and do what if they were never taught?
I gotta say this.
I got something after that.
I gotta say this, and you let me know if you want after you say yours. If we want to go into Q&A, it's up to you.
Sure.
I'll say this because you made a point, and we're unfiltered. We don't own a filter, right, Rod?
No,
Yeah.
I can't spell it.
Can't spell it. So you said that since men are boys are being raised and they don't see a man being logical and making decisions, so it's hard for them to be in a relationship, get married, and make decisions.
Yes.
So then isn't it also safe to say that women are not in the space to be able to have someone make decisions for them and lead them because they've never seen it done?
Yes.
So therefore, even when they do have a man that tries to come and do this,
We doing this?
We doing this. You said there's no filter. You said we don't own one.
It's done
To say
already.
that women are rejecting leadership when it does show up because they have also not been in a space to see a man lead logically?
Oh, shoot. It's a good one.
Carlos, so let me tell you, when people ask me, okay, so when I get couples and if they're going through stuff, I would ask, what's your role? What role did you play in? The wives always get mad at me, especially if it's already at divorce. And I'm like, what role did you play in the divorce? But he cheated on me, but he did it. But what role did you play? They never, ever, ever wanted to hear this. So I told on me. When I got married, I already had a house, I already had a business, I already had all these things. My husband lived with his parents. I think the role I played in my divorce, I continued doing all those things. So my mortgage came straight from my account, all these things, I was still doing all these things. So when it got to the place now when children now comes in the picture and he was doing nothing. This is what I make. So if we need, let's say, $50 and he makes $10, I better go try and find the 40. But I took full responsibility for that. Because when he entered the space, I never said, okay, this is what the mortgage is. Let's do. I just continued because that's all I knew. Remember, I was raised with my mother. I saw her making it happen to the point where I remember one time I said, do you worry if the kids are going to die? And he goes, you'll never let your children die for hunger.
So let me ask you there because I can see anyone listening not processing this a certain way.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I'm understanding a certain way. You were it seems like you were independent, and when you got married, you maintained that level of independence and never stopped to say, well, what's the new dynamic of the marriage? So this is Carlos has his grandfather tips. These are business tips I'm going to give, right? So anyone who's listening, because I always equate marriage to business because it is a business in the United States.
It is.
Whenever you hire a new employee, they don't get adapted into your old culture. You actually have a new culture now. With every new hire, there's a new culture to your organization. So when you get married, it's not that coming into what you have, it's what's do we have now, because it has to reset. So was I interpreting that accurately?
Yes,
perfect.
Absolutely. And I say all that, to tell on myself, because this is unfiltered, because I think sometimes people think, oh, she's a therapist and she has these degrees and her life is perfect. No, it's not. It's I can speak what I speak because I've gone through all the struggles and I can speak boldly on these matters. But the fact is that I never changed the narrative. You understand? So all I knew was that you get things done. This is what life is. You get things done. Now, what I should have done is ensure that he now understands and give him space to lead, provide, and protect. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
He has never spoken about these things. But after I left the marriage and I'm now doing my soul searching and all these things, that's what I came up with. Like the things that I'm now telling people, I'm asking, wait, did you guys talk about this prior? Did you, when you look at the reasons for divorce, it's not even communication. I mean, it is, communication, but it's sex and money because it was never communicated well, And so we have a lot of that happening. So many women, even if we get a man now, Carlos, that wants to lead and wants to do these things, it may be read as he wants to control me. If you are not familiar with that.
So, Los, I think we can do this all day. I want to go into this, where I'm going to ask you 2 questions. All right.
All right. We going to Q&A?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's put the camera on Dawn. Let's put Dawn front and center.
On Dawn.
Yeah. There she goes, front and center. So, Dawn, the first question, right? How does a man who's experienced trauma, how does this impact 2 things? His relationship with his partner, and equally importantly, his relationship with his child. So that's the first question. So just give us an answer on that, and then I got another one for you.
Yes, absolutely. So a man who have experienced trauma and they're not healed, depending on what the trauma is, most of the time they show up in a relationship with a lot of insecurities. Believe it or not, yes. They show up with a lot of insecurities. And when a person is not secure within themselves, whether it's man or woman, remember, you're always going to be on the defense. So even if something is not what it is, it's how you heard it, and you are going to get in defense mode even when you're not being attacked. If a man is not secure in who he is as a person, he may take things a little bit more personal. It's a lot, Rob. It's a lot. And I always encourage men, take time out to love on you. Take time out to love on you and ensure that you get to that place of self-actualization so that no matter how the female shows up, you're able to relate differently. And this is why we don't see a lot of intimacy within or among our Black men. Unfortunately, we don't see a lot of intimacy because they are afraid to allow themselves to be vulnerable, because let's say the trauma is something from mother wound. I do this and my mother told me I was an idiot, or told me I was this, or now you become anxious avoidant, and so you are afraid that this woman may say something that trigger and allow you to feel exactly what you were feeling growing up in that home with your mother, or whomever the person is that would have caused that traumatic experience for you.
Thank you so much for that. And go ahead, Los. You want to say something? Because I heard you breathing heavy.
This I can say for me, in that same vein, in that same space, how it showed up was more so me creating an environment that I didn't need much love. I didn't need much affection.
Yeah.
My mother and father divorced when I was young. They separated, and I internally made a decision, when my mom has to raise 4 boys, let me lighten the load. And so by me lightening the load, what that looks like is I'm not going to need much from her. And it formed me. This trauma formed me into a place in relationship where I created an environment where the person who I was with, the environment said that I don't need much, when it wasn't true. So that trauma can show up in a lot of different ways.
So,
Carlos, if I could just say something to Carlos, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because every day we show people how to treat us. And one of the things I recognize also, coming from from a woman, from a woman's perspective, not necessarily a psychologist, is the fact that we were taught to respect the man, but I don't think we were taught per se to love him and show up for him and encourage him and buy him Valentine's gift and buy him Father's Day gift. No, it's we were raised that the man is supposed to love us, and the man is supposed to give to us, and the man is, so many times when a woman show up as taker, sometimes you can't even knock them, because the man himself show you how to treat him. So society show men that you don't need love. Don't ask. Yeah.
So 2 things, right? Because that ties up to the next question. Los, I'm so glad you said that, because what's interesting, I forgot what I was talking, because you talked about creating the environment where you don't need it. Oh man, I lost my train of thought on that one, because you hit me. But this is gonna bring me to the next thing. And Dawn, we're bringing you back because we do want to have a show just on intimacy.
Yeah.
Just on that alone. But piggybacking off what you just said, how do you think cultural and societal pressure on masculinity impacts the way men experience trauma and express it?
Well, yeah. Let's talk about expressive. Now, I'm in Jamaica. You listen to dancehall music. You hear some of those things that I mean,
dances? Yeah.
Some different type of lyrics. Different.
So okay, so I was on a radio show in Cayman Islands, right? And the DJ said to me, Miss Petgrave, I was taught by my father and my uncles. By the time he was 17, they were trying to bring him girls, because you need to turn man. So the culture teaches that unless you have gal in a bongo, like the song said.
Another gal in a bongo, gal from.
There you go.
The Caribbeans are going in, y'all. They're going in.
Y'all got gazada, yeah, sexy gal. You already know. Sorry, Los. I told you. I was excited about this one.
Come on.
Sorry, we're gonna edit this out, Los. Don't worry.
But the fact is that unless you have a lot of women, you're not masculine. So that's what defines masculinity. So this is why you have, oh my God, hear these trauma. You have all these men out there with all these women and all these children, one here, one there. And they don't recognize the trauma that they're causing these children who don't have access to their fathers or who don't have access to basic needs because their father has 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them. So of course trauma is going to show up differently. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, when you tell a little boy that unless he starts having sex at 15 or, and start having kids, I had to, they called me in to do a forensic interview for some at-risk juvenile. There were juveniles. They didn't want to send them to the juvenile center, so they started this program where they tried to rehabilitate them. There was one kid who was like 17 with 2 children. And that was his pride. That was, pretty much I can't talk to him because man, and what you going to tell me? No, that's a child right there. His brain is not even fully developed for him to make any form of decision. Now, what kind of life is he going to possibly have? Just process it. 17 years old, you're already two, so college is never going to see him. He's never going to get to college because now you're trying to do all kind of hustling. Now, do you realize that at 17, you have no qualifications? What kind of hustling are you going to do? Do you now recognize why we have drugs and streets and guns and crime? Because that is now the easiest thing and the most likely thing for you to do, to be able to try to put food on the table. So then, okay, to do that, you provide for a little bit, but then you get locked up and you end up behind bars. But here what happened, there's nobody providing and protecting these children. So now your little girls are being molested because they don't have a father, their father's behind bar, and the ripple effect continues and the traumas continues.
So staying there then, right, because we can see the cycle, but let's say someone like, let's use Los or myself or whatever man that's at a point where they were able to get to this point.
Yeah.
How does it, because so one of the things that I wrestled with, and I actually had this conversation with someone when I was in college, and because of the community I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm not going to call it the city because Carlos makes fun of me for calling it the city.
I'm saying,
right?
You guys
but
say the
everybody
city like
in the
no other city. Like,
everybody in the world understands Brooklyn. Everybody knows. I'm sure you in Jamaica, you know what Brooklyn is, okay?
Yes,
so,
I do.
But I grew up in a particular part, this Flatbush, East New Yorkish, and so there's a certain attitude you have to be able to survive somewhat. So what am I going with this? So when I was in college, I always had to be prepared to fight anyone. I had to be prepared. And I had to also be prepared, even if you were a female, to either insult you or put you in a place where you do not come test me. I'm not looking for it, but don't come test me. Why am I saying this? Because that impacted my ability to have a real relationship, because I'm always walking this duality of a man that my body's telling me you want to cuddle, you want to hug, you want this woman to support you, but my mind's telling me, hey, listen, if she raised her voice, cuss her out. And so this is what I'm trying to get to. Like, how does this pressure to be a man and be tough and rugged and, to your point, durable? I don't need love, so I'm gonna talk to me as quickly as you can, because I know we're up at the hour.
Well, let me just first say this, that I wish all men will get to the place that they understand that we know that you need love. Allow us to love you.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Dawn, I'm so sorry. Los had mentioned about he created a space. Sorry, Los. I know I'm doing a lot of talking.
Go ahead.
I want to give my friend Brandis Manuel out in Chicago some love, because she said something to me that was so prophetic. Again, I'm a man. I used to raise my children and tell them, you don't have to love me. Love your mother. She's the only woman in this world that ever actually risked her life for you. I will do what I have to do because I'm your father. I don't need it. If you love me, no problem, but it won't impact my love. I used to talk like this. I'm a little older now, saying, no, I want my kids to love me, but I will still do what I have to do.
Right.
But I went into a procedure, and I've had multiple surgeries from playing sports. I've had some health issues at some points in my life. And just one time I was in a hospital, and this is going to sound silly, but they put the little gown cap on my head, and I'm silly. And I was like, oh man, I finally got to wear one of these. Took a picture of it, sent it to a friend. And my friend Brandis called me the next day yelling because it was an in-and-out procedure. My heart was saying, who are you talking to? But because I knew she loved me as a human being, I listened. She said these words, and it's resonated with me, changed my life. Rod, you do not give people the opportunity to love you.
Yeah.
There are people out there that want to love you, and you do not give the space for them. Ever since she said that, it changed my perspective, because I said, what do you mean? Like, it took a while to process. Like, you're right. I don't ask for help. I don't say I want to hang out. I don't show these moments of vulnerability. Or I didn't, right? Because this is 7-8 years. I didn't. But then it showed me, like, wait a minute. But do I want this? It made me ask myself a lot of questions. So, Lowe's, thank you for bringing that up. I just want to share that, Dawn. And I'm sorry, I know you were saying something, and people, and our listeners probably want to hear more of you.
No, it's, you know what it is? It's I was dating someone, and early in the relationship, the first couple of conversations, I asked, what satisfies your soul? And he said, that's a loaded question. I don't know. I said, what makes you happy? He didn't know. He didn't know. So I think we have a lot of men screaming that, oh, we're not loved, and oh, we're not treated well, and oh, but you're walking around saying, I don't need you to help me. I don't need love. I don't need, but allow us the opportunity to love you.
I will say, I know you're still making that point, that many men don't allow it. I just told y'all my story. I think also many men are not allowed the space for it. There was this meme, this video going around years ago, and it came back up probably like a year or so ago. Black men frolicking. Like black men were recording themselves. That's what we doing. We frolicking. That's what we doing.
I remember
Black
this
men
one.
frolicking. Like they was in the grass running around, and it was like a running joke. But at the same time, it was like, we've never had the space to do this. We've never had the space to show happiness and joy and just frolic through. Now I ain't saying you got to frolic through a park somewhere, but I understood and I got it. Black men understood it, and they were participating because black men were subconsciously saying, and even consciously saying, we don't get a chance to do this. There's no space for us to do this. So I think there's a duality. I think, yes, I even told my story. We don't give enough people the space to do that for us. But at the same time, I don't think we see a lot of space. You get what I'm saying? I don't think a lot of us see an opportunity. Oh, I have room to do that here. I have room to do that here. I want to say something. I know we're unfiltered, but I might get in trouble by saying it.
So don't say it, because I think we need to bring Dawn back.
All right, I'll hold it for that.
Yeah, I think we get into conversations of intimacy, which I think, again, Carlos and I, we talk authentically, but there are certain conversations you need the experts. You need the people that have what you've done today, the spiritual and the clinical and the scientific knowledge to help us understand what we're experiencing, and so that it's not subjective, it's objective. Like there's studies. You're not alone in experiencing this, young black man, old black man, young black son, uncle, and wife to this black man. There's a reason for this, and understanding. My people perish for what?
Lack of knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
So help us see this 3D movie.
Right. My last question to you, Dawn, right? And then we want to hear how people can find out about you.
Yes.
My last question, which is a support question. I wrote this down and I'm going to read it. What role do support systems, family, friends, community, play in the recovery process of men in trauma?
Awesome. Let's start with the man and himself. You have to be a part of your own rescue. There was a blind man in the Bible, and he says, Jesus, save me. And, because every time the water is still, somebody goes before him, and Jesus asked him, wilt thou be made whole? Jesus could have just said, side cons. He said, "Wilt thou be made whole?" So my question to the Black man is, wilt thou be made whole? Because you first have to get to that place where you want the healing for you. Healing is going to cause you to become vulnerable. Are you willing to become vulnerable? So that's the first thing. Will you be made whole? The second thing is, if I could just speak to women, because we're so powerful, man. We can speak to the fool in a man, and we can speak to the king in a man. And I would just encourage my sisters, if you want to see the king in him, speak to the king in him, even when he's acting like a fool. Just keep on speaking to that king in him, because it's amazing what our words can do for a man. I see it. I will just, yesterday again at the conference, I walked and there was a young man. He had on sunglasses, but he had on a suit. He was sharp. And I walked up to him and I stretched my hand out. I said, "My name is Dawn Petgrave. You look amazing." He took his glasses off. He was blushing from here to there. And he goes, "I'm 19 years old and I'm a business student and I had to come." Oh my God, you don't understand. And he stuck with me. So everybody thought this was my child. Everybody thought he was my son. He sat beside me, the whole day. Just because I saw what that did for him. Now, he said this to me, "I'm going to have to tell all my friends about you. What's your social media? I want them to meet you." So it's amazing when you encourage a man, because, and hear this, if the question was, how do you overcome ACEs, your adverse childhood experiences? Did you know that it's through love, that it's now loving, creating a safe space of love for these men? So I was doing a course in neuroscience for psychologists, and we recognize that love is a transmitter. So the Bible tells you that love heals all things. Love covers a multitude of sin. So if we just start loving our men a little bit more, encouraging them, saying thank you. So many men told me that they do not feel appreciated. They do all the right things. They provide this and that, but because it's expected of them. But women, we need to become a little bit more appreciative, go a little bit above and beyond, especially when you have those that are doing it. Because, come on, we have those that are really, really not playing the roles, and that's for another conversation. But when we have our men out there who are trying, I think everybody needs to get together and empower our men a little bit more. I'm careful with giving men compliments because sometimes they think I'm trying to pick them up, but an intelligent man will accept a compliment. And I recognize, even when I go to the prison, one of them told me recently, I was there for Father's Day, and he said, "Miss Petgrave, you're the first one that makes me feel like a human being." Can you imagine? I'm the first one that make him feel like a human being. And I think if we start there, if we start teaching our children, love your father, love on your father. Fathers have to get to the place, not like what you said, Coach, like, hey, love your mom, but you don't have to. No. Children need to know that fathers need love too, because they're going to show up differently. They're going to show up differently for you.
What you said was good too, that I like you said, be careful. You said you have to be careful because
I told you, Los, you can't say hi to everybody. I told you this, right? I'm telling you.
You said you look that good. You can't say hi to everybody.
You can't say hi to everybody.
But I think what you're saying, though, on that somebody should do this for their significant other. Like, do this for your husband. Do this for your man. Do this for your son. Do this for your father. Deon Cole said, next time your man having a conversation with somebody else, just go start moisturizing his hands.
Absolutely.
Well, that's very nice of you, ma'am. Thank you.
Absolutely.
But I think if I think what you said, like, be careful, but I think you're also saying do this for the person and the man that's in your life, and it will work. Just like the young man said, Miss Dawn Petgrave, who was sitting with you, what's your social media? You got to tell everybody. So how can we get in contact with you?
Yeah. What we got to follow? What we got to click?
Yes. What people need to do to find you?
Dawn Marie Therapy. That's it. On IG, Dawn Marie Therapy. On LinkedIn, Dawn Marie Therapy. Facebook, same thing. And you'll
spell
see
that for us. We're gonna throw it up on the screen too, but spell that for us.
It's DAWNMARIETHERAPY, Dawn Marie Therapy.
Okay, and that's on any social media?
And then my website is dawnmarietherapy.com.
Okay.
I love it. Dawn, again, you're a friend of the show. We're partners. We're going to take this overseas. We're going to be in Jamaica, the Caribbean, the U.S. We're going to champion this, changing the narrative. And I don't even want to say changing the narrative, bringing to light what the true picture of Black fatherhood looks like. Because there are men out there that are living this, breathing this. And so, for me and Los, thank you. I think this was, for me, it was therapeutic, much needed. And like I said, I'm going to go back home now. You can talk to the fool or you can talk to the king. You have to, but talk to the king, please.
Please talk to the king. Listen,
Yes,
man, thank you for our listeners. Dawn Petgrave, thank you so much for joining in. She is going to be back for sure. We are Black Dad Unfiltered. I'm Carlos B. Spencer.
I'm Coach Rod. Let's go. Let's grow. Let's get it.
Y'all be blessed.
Bye, guys.
Let's go, let's go, let's grow, let's grow, let's get it, let's get it, let's